You spent a weekend and a few $100s making your yard look better, and some of it is quietly killing your lawn. The mulch piled against your tree trunk is rotting the bark underneath. The fabric under your rock bed is choking the soil. The short, tidy cut you're proud of is inviting the weeds you hate most. None of it looks like damage yet. That's the trap. These upgrades fail slowly and silently, and by the time the grass thins or the tree leans, the cause is buried under the exact thing you paid for. 7 quiet mistakes. I know how that sounds. You improved your yard, and here I am telling you it backfired. But stay with me, because every one of these is a mistake I see repeated on nice, cared-for properties, the kind of yard owned by someone who actually tried. That's what makes it sting. The neglected yards usually aren't the ones with these problems. The upgraded ones are, and most of these improvements get sold to you as the smart, low-maintenance choice, which is exactly why they spread so fast and why almost nobody questions them. Here's a thread running through all 7. Each one fixes the surface and ignores what's happening underneath, at the roots, in the soil, at the crown of the grass. You treat the surface, feel good for a season, and pay for it later. Let's go through them, worst offender included. Start with the one wrapped around half the trees in America, the mulch volcano. Somewhere along the way, a tall cone of mulch packed right up against the trunk became the look of a maintained yard. It's the opposite of care. Bark isn't built to sit buried and wet. Piled against the trunk, mulch traps moisture against the bark day and night, and constant moisture invites rot, fungus, and insects into the one part of the tree that is supposed to stay dry. Then it gets worse. The tree starts pushing roots up into that soft mound, and those roots circle the trunk instead of spreading out, slowly choking the tree from its own base. You won't see any of it for years. Then the canopy thins, the tree leans, and nobody connects it back to the mulch. Mulch itself is genuinely good. 2 to 3 inches spread over the root zone holds water and feeds the soil. The fix costs you nothing. Pull it back a few inches from the trunk until you can see the flare, the spot where the trunk widens as it goes into the ground. Flat donut, never a cone. Now peel back the bed nearby, because the second mistake is usually hiding under it. Landscape fabric. It gets sold as the permanent answer to weeds, and for one season it looks like it's working. Then it turns on you. That fabric blocks the one thing that keeps soil alive. Organic matter working its way down into the ground. Leaves, mulch, and clippings break down on top of the fabric instead of into the dirt, and that rotting layer becomes a perfect seedbed. Weeds sprout on top and root straight down through the mesh, so now they're stitched into the fabric, and harder to pull than they ever were in bare soil. Underneath, the ground compacts and starves, the earthworms leave, and the low-maintenance bed you were promised turns into a tangled mess you can't weed without tearing plastic out of the dirt. Plain mulch on bare soil does the same weed-blocking job and feeds the ground while it's at it. Skip the fabric almost everywhere except under hardscape, like a gravel path or a patio base, which leads straight into number 3, because fabric's favorite partner is a rock bed. Rock looks clean and permanent, and around the right feature it's fine. The mistake is using it as mulch around your plants, or ringing it against the house and along the lawn. Stone doesn't feed soil. It just sits there and heats up. On a summer afternoon, a rock bed soaks up sun and radiates it straight back, baking the roots of everything nearby and scorching the grass along its edge. Put it against a south-facing wall and it becomes a reflector oven. Dust and leaves still blow in, break down in the gaps, and grow weeds anyway. Except now you're weeding on your knees around 100 rocks, and it's close to permanent. Once stone is down and worked into the soil, digging it back out is one of the worst weekends you'll ever spend. Around plants and lawn, organic mulch keeps the ground cooler and alive. Save the stone for drainage and paths where nothing's meant to grow. So far, these are all things you added to the yard. The next one is something you do every single week, and it might be the most common lawn mistake there is. Cutting the grass too short. It feels like an upgrade, a lower, cleaner cut, and fewer trips behind the mower. It's the fastest way to weaken a lawn there is. Grass feeds itself through its blades, so when you scalp off most of the leaf, you strip its ability to make energy, and it burns through root reserves just to grow back. Every low cut makes the roots a little shorter and shallower. Shallow roots dry out fast and can't reach moisture in a dry spell, so your lawn browns the second the heat arrives. And there's a second hit. A short lawn opens the canopy and lets sunlight hit bare soil, and sunlight on warm soil is the exact signal crabgrass and other weeds sit waiting for to germinate. You mow low to look tidy, and you hand the weeds an open invitation. The rule that protects you is simple. Never take off more than a third of the blade at once, and for most cool season grass, keep it somewhere around 3 to 4 inches. Taller grass shades out weeds and grows deeper roots, and it does both for free. Number 5 usually shows up with an upgrade you were proud to install. An automatic sprinkler system set to run a little every single morning. Feels convenient. It's also the perfect recipe for a weak lawn. A light daily watering only wets the top inch of soil, so the roots have no reason to chase water downward. They stay shallow, right up in the layer that heats up and dries out first. Meanwhile, the surface stays damp all day, and damp all day is exactly what lawn fungus and disease are looking for. Soft, shallow grass is also easy ground for weeds to move into. Grass roots grow toward water, so if you keep the water shallow, the roots stay shallow with it. What actually builds a deep, drought-tough lawn is the opposite of daily sips. Give it a deep soak once or twice a week, around an inch of water total, and let the surface dry out in between. The sprinkler system was never the problem. The daily schedule somebody set on it is. And the last 2 are the more is better upgrades. The ones where trying harder is what does the damage. Number 6 is drowning the lawn in fertilizer, usually as weed and feed dumped across the entire yard. Green is good, so more feed must be better, right? That's not how grass works. Push too much fast nitrogen into it and you force a surge of soft top growth the roots can't keep up with, and that excess piles up as thatch and opens the door to disease. Push even harder and the salts in the fertilizer scorch the lawn brown. The same nitrogen and salt burn a dog leaves in a spot, except now you've spread it across the whole yard. Anything the grass can't use washes off the soil and down the storm drain, so you're literally paying money to pollute the creek. Weed and feed adds its own problem on top. It smears herbicide over every square foot to kill weeds growing in a few, and it's often applied at the wrong time of year to even do that. Spot treat the weeds you actually have. Feed the lawn based on what it needs, not on how full the spreader happens to be. The 7th one looks like plain good housekeeping, bagging every last clipping. A clean, striped lawn with nothing left on top feels like the finished product. What you're really doing is hauling away free fertilizer. Grass clippings are mostly water and nitrogen, and left on the lawn they break down within days and feed the soil, and over a season that adds up to a real share of the nitrogen you'd otherwise pay for in a bag. The old fear is that clippings build thatch. They don't. Thatch is built from tough roots and stems, not from clippings, which rot down far too quickly to ever pile up. Bag when the grass is soaking wet or so overgrown it comes out in clumps. The rest of the time, let those clippings fall and let the lawn feed itself. Now let me break my own case for a second, because none of these is an absolute law. Rock is the right call for a dry creek bed or a real drainage run. Fabric genuinely earns its place under a gravel path or a patio where nothing is ever supposed to grow. There are warm season grasses, some Bermuda types, that are mowed low on purpose, because the right mowing height depends on your grass, not on one number I shout at you. Bagging is correct when disease is present, and you want those clippings off the lawn and gone. The mistake was never the material or the tool by itself. It's using it in the wrong place, out of habit, because it looked like the tidy, finished choice. If you only fix one of these today, make it the mulch on your trees, because that's the one quietly killing the single most expensive thing in your whole yard. And here's the trap most people fall into when they try. They correct it by dumping a fresh bag of mulch on top of the old pile, which just builds the cone even higher. Pull it back instead, all the way down until you can clearly see the trunk widen out into the ground. If the mulch is already sitting against bark that feels soft or looks dark, that's rot that's already started, and burying it deeper only speeds it up. You don't have to take my word for a single piece of this either. You can read it in the yards right around you. Find the tree with a mulch cone and look up at how thin the top of it is. Look at the lawn scalped down to the dirt in July and count the crabgrass creeping along its edges. Then compare it to the neighbor who mows tall and has none. Walk past a rock bed against a hot south wall in the afternoon and feel the heat rolling off it. Then look at the browning grass right along its border. The pattern shows up the same way every time. The upgraded yard is struggling in the exact spot that got upgraded. Add the money up and it runs backwards on you. You pay for the fabric, then you pay again to rip it out. You pay for the fertilizer that burns the lawn, then you pay to reseed the burn it left. You bag and haul off the clippings, then you drive to the store and buy the nitrogen you just threw away. The most expensive part isn't any one product on that list. It's paying to create a problem and then paying a second time to undo it season after season without ever once seeing the loop you're stuck in. But clearing all 7 of these only gets you back to 0. Pulling the mulch off the trunk stops the rot, but it doesn't rebuild a root system that's been girdling itself for 3 years. Raising your mowing height starts to close the canopy, but it won't erase the weed seed already sitting in thin, sun-baked soil. These fixes are the brakes, not the engine. The real upgrade, the one that genuinely thickens a lawn and actually keeps it that way, is matching what you do to what you've got. Your grass type, your soil, your sun, your season. That's the whole difference between a yard that looks maintained from the street and one that's actually healthy underneath. So before you start your next weekend project, walk out and look hard at what you've already improved. The cone on the tree, the fabric under the rock, the daily timer on the wall, the bag hanging off the mower, and ask yourself whether it's helping the yard or just looking busy. Tell me down in the comments which of these 7 is sitting in your yard right now, and what grass you're growing, because the fix for a cool season lawn and a warm season lawn is not the same. I'll keep breaking down the cheap, boring, actually works side of lawn care, the part nobody out there is trying to sell you.